right. Welcome back in episode 3 of the Glue Guys. I'm Landen and Lucas. That's Richard Lucas. And we have a fun episode today. We have Tyshawn Taylor, former KU point guard, joining us, along with a bunch of other fun stuff. But first, how are you? How's it going up in Portland?
Things are great. And I can tell you, I'm super excited about today's episode for a multitude of reasons. But the most excited I am about is the fact that we're going to talk about Marvel movies.
Yes,
so I haven't worn my Marvel
on.
shirt. See, I don't know if you can see that. I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm talking about the MCU in the top 5.
Well,
so
I'll
I'm
save
that.
I'll save that for the end. But for those who make it until the end, we are going to go over a top 5 Marvel MCU movies at the end. So if you listen that long, congrats. But let's get started.
Stuff. We'll deal with that.
Exactly.
We'll get to the good stuff later.
Exactly. But starting off with basketball, Kansas had a big game this last weekend against Missouri. It was a fun one to watch, and I want to kind of get your opinion on how you thought the game went, obviously for Kansas, and then your thoughts on everything, the environment that you saw, and what you saw on Saturday.
Well, the environment was unbelievable. I mean, that place really hasn't been rocking like that since pre-COVID. And we talked about it with Coach Roberts last week as well. Is that what makes Allen Fieldhouse so special? It's those fans. And when that place is going, and I can tell you, I still get goosebumps just thinking about the days that of me being in the stands myself and watching you play. So that environment, it felt championship, like it was a Final Four environment, or at least a regular season environment. So now let's talk about the game itself. It was a rivalry. Don't get me wrong, right? In all sense of the word. But, I mean, come on now. It was Kansas was a 22-point favorite going into it. So
25.
Or 25.
Yeah,
they were
a big one.
They were a big favorite going into it. So we knew what the outcome was going to be. And I know you have to say all the superlatives about, throw out the records and throw out all this stuff and just throw the ball up and see what happens. But in the end, there's a massive class difference. And we've talked about defense and how important that is. But really, you didn't have to even play a whole lot of defense because they weren't very good. But the fact that KU shot so well, 56% from the field, 53%, I believe it is, or 52% from 3, that really is the difference. You just got better players on one side, not as good of players on the other. And so there was the difference in the ballgame.
Yeah, and I'll say, when Coach Rob even, mentioned, hey, it's a rivalry, anything can happen, they're going to come play. I kind of fed into it a little bit in the sense that I saw the 25-point spread, and I was like, I don't think I would bet this, just because you assume those games are going to be competitive. You do throw out the records more times than not. However, I forgot one big thing, and I actually tweeted out before the game, which is that this is probably the first time that a lot of those Kansas players have played in an environment at Allen Fieldhouse that's really Allen Fieldhouse.
Yep.
They've had games there, but because of the COVID season and because it just, things kind of tapered off. I was fortunate to get quite a few games. Almost every game in Allen Fieldhouse was rocking. But, some of these guys, the newer guys, haven't had that real rowdy, just, thousands of fans waiting outside, like Coach Rob said last week, and it hit me that right before the game, I'm thinking, oh, these guys, they're gonna come out to play. I mean, as soon as you go out there, you're gonna feel Allen Fieldhouse. You'll feel those 16,300 fans, and they'll quickly realize that this is different. And I think that you saw Missouri. There were many times that I, played at Allen Fieldhouse, and we, with home and away in conference, you would play the same team twice a year.
Yeah.
And it was like playing a different team when you were at home. You would get that, let's say West Virginia or TCU at home, and it was completely different, almost like just they felt a little not as strong. It felt like things were working a little bit better. Everything seemed a little easier at home, and that obviously gets amplified when you have a rivalry and the crowd going crazy like they were. They were playing the Hum song, which I don't know if you were at that game. Were you at the West Virginia comeback game?
No, but I had a heart attack about 50 times watching it.
Oh,
But no, I wasn't. I wasn't at that one.
so that one, there was this song, and have you seen what movie is that from? It's from um, with the Leonardo DiCaprio. Anyways,
Yeah.
it's from a
He's
movie
in like
that
100 movies. Just so you know.
I know. I'm
What do you want
blanking
me
on
to
the
do?
name. The Wolf of Wall Street. That's what it is.
Okay.
Anyways, they turned it into like this techno dance song or whatever. But when we were making that comeback, they played it every single time out. Like I've never seen them, but whoever was doing the music was just like, all right,
Yeah.
we're gonna go back to this, because the crowd was going nuts. They were jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty cool to hear them bring that back out, because it got the fans going. The environment was nuts.
Yeah.
And you even heard I don't know if you saw, but the Missouri players after the game, they were in there like fans. They were like, that was the coolest thing. They just lost by 40 points.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that was such a great experience. I've never played anything like that. I mean, it was almost like they were there, just to experience Allen Fieldhouse and then get out of there and then go back to, what they were, their games in Missouri, which I don't think have been getting quite the crowd that they played in front of on Saturday.
Well, it's funny that you say that. It reminds me of the '92 Dream Team, and how, at the beginning, those opponents were more excited just to be able to meet the players on the other side than they were about the actual game itself, because they just knew that it wasn't going to be even close. And then one thing I will tell you about Allen Fieldhouse is that, when the opponents come in there, they're already at a disadvantage. I mean, it's just you already assume a loss, especially during those times when there was massive, they went on streaks and streaks and streaks. I don't even know what the record is, to be honest with you, of how many losses Bill Self has had at home.
But less than he's won Big 12 championships.
Big 12 championships. So it's still in that,
11.
It's probably 11, 12. I remember while you were there, it was like in the, 8, 9 range or something like that. And so that just tells you that Allen Fieldhouse itself is, it's almost like this barrier or something. And like when you walk through it and you go, into the other side, you just lost all abilities. You become, what's the Monstars? Remember they lost their Jam? Remember that? By the way, everybody, Landon's favorite movie as a child.
Oh, it's a great movie.
But, they lost all their ability to do everything. Right? It kind of is almost the same way. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the mystique and everything that goes along with playing in Allen Fieldhouse. So it's a great place.
Yeah. And I think that was a great way to reintroduce the rivalry. I'm sure Kansas fans are happy with that. And now they have a week off, and then they'll be coming back with Stephen F. Austin I believe it's at home. Hopefully they can continue this momentum. One thing I'll say about Stephen F. Austin is I haven't seen them play this year. However, I remember at Kansas with Coach Self, he took multiple film sessions to watch Stephen F. Austin play defense. And we would sit there and we would watch them because of how good they were. And I think this was my junior year. So it was probably the team with like Wayne and Frank, Devontae, Perry, that team. Yeah. And we were struggling a little bit on defense early on, similar to this year's team. And what he did was he brought out, film from Stephen F. Austin. And so if they're anything like that, I'm sure we won't be shooting the high percentages that we did last game.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure, it's been many years since then. But it should be a fun game. Hopefully they continue this momentum and, try to build off of what they had going last week.
And this is the last game before Christmas break, right?
Is it? It may be. And if it is,
right.
Warning to all players, do not lose this game.
Do not.
Or else you will not have a good Christmas. I guarantee you.
There'll be coal in the stocking.
The amount of film that I had to watch on Stephen F. Austin, just times that by 100, because that's, what they'll be doing along with some really long, grueling practices. Yes. So, pro tip to any of those new guys with Coach Self, don't lose this game. If there's any game, I know you got past the Missouri game and all that. Focusing on this game, get it done. and then think about the break afterwards. So I
Yes.
do believe it is the last one, but it was definitely something they should be aware of going into this Christmas break. But all right, well, one more thing, we moved up one spot in the rankings to number 7, which I still think is not giving us enough respect. I believe that this is a top 5 team pretty clearly, and number 7 just doesn't feel quite right.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but as a fan now, as a player, I understand that. As a fan, I like to see them up there. I like when the number shows 1 or 2 next to the Kansas. That always just makes you feel a little bit better. But the number 1 team, Baylor, had a pretty impressive win where they held Villanova to, I think it was 30-something points, and they play your Oregon Ducks. I don't know if you knew this, but they play them coming up. So have you followed the Ducks team this year? Do you think that Big 12 is going to run through?
Yeah, I have it, and Ducks are terrible this year so far. I mean, one of the things that's happened over the years, I'm going to go too deep into them, is that they've always been a team that has started off a little bit slow and they've gotten better as the year goes, and they're usually humming by the end of the Pac-12 and into the NCAA tournament. This year, they're a mess right now and have gotten blown out. And I mean by blown out, like the Missouri KU score blown out multiple times so far this year. So I don't think it's going to be even close. I hope as an Oregon fan that they are, but I just don't think it's going to be.
I don't know if they score over 30 points after what they just did to Villanova.
Probably not. It's going to be ugly for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good time to go ahead and bring in our fan of this week and in our In the Stands from the stands segment. And so, Derek, do we have Derek with us? All right, Derek, what's up? Welcome to the show. From the Stands segment, we got you on today. How are you doing?
Good, guys. How are you guys?
Doing pretty well. Now, tell everybody a little bit about your journey to becoming a KU fan and your history of the KU fan that you are.
For sure. So I was actually born in Joplin, Missouri, so right on the border of Kansas and Missouri, and my dad was a diehard Jayhawks fan at the time. I say at the time because we've now lived in Lexington for most of our lives, Lexington, Kentucky, and he started drinking the Kentucky Kool-Aid.
No. Yeah, you got to stop that.
He let it go home. And so over the years, he claimed for a while that Kentucky was like Kansas was hard to watch. And I was like, it's not 1985, bro. Like they're on ESPN twice a week. But that's his excuse now. So he's a Kentucky fan, but I didn't let the water convert me. So I've been a Kansas fan and been in a lot of arguments for the last 20 years.
Was he, real quick before you keep going, was he at the Kansas-Kentucky game at Rupp Arena, the last few that we've been there?
No, so him and I went in 2005 last time when J.R. Giddens and Aaron Miles. So that was the last time we went when Kansas was number 2. The tickets are outrageous when they come to town. So all the Kentucky fans charge you a premium to get in there. And so we used to watch him together, but that slowly faded over time too. I think Bill Self's helping that a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's not – keep on.
No, you're fine. But so I've been a diehard fan basically since I was a kid, and grew up reading the media guides and just loving Jayhawk basketball, even though I'm kind of by myself over here in Lexington with the Jayhawk gear.
So thank you for joining us, and this From the Stands segment I just love because this is the time when you get that real passion like you got and what you're talking about. And so this is a question I like to ask a lot because there's a lot of great games, but the fans all seem to have a different game that impacted them or that stands out in their head. So what would be like that game that you just loved the most in your fan career?
Yeah, probably a couple. I would say the first one obviously is the 2008 national championship game. I mean, that was obviously wild. I actually was a big fan. It was the 2017, not to bring up what happened in the next round, but that Purdue game when I felt like we were just clicking on all cylinders, and I was I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I was 100% convinced. I was like, this team is in. We're never going to lose. There's no
Hey,
chance.
we thought so too. We thought so too.
I remember after that weekend, we had just blown out 2 teams, like largest margin, like in NCAA history. And I mean, I went to school Monday and was just like, this is it. Like, folks, y'all better buckle up. This team can't be beaten. And so those were the 2. And then the 2018 Duke, when we beat Duke to go to the Final Four, we won't talk about what happened in the Final Four as well, but that was an awesome game when Svi and the boys took out Marvin Bagley and that Duke team.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Derek, what do you think of this team this year, and like compared to the other teams that you've seen, you know, where would you rank this team that you're watching out on the court this year?
Yeah, I was talking about it with my coworkers the other day. I actually think this team is probably one of the better offensive teams we've seen. And when we play it with pace, we can run teams to death, which is kind of not really classic Bill Self. It's usually classic half court. If we win, Bill Self would rather win 2-0 than he would 96-80. So I think what's most impressive about this team is just in transition, there's so many people that can score. I mean, Juan does such a good job of distributing the ball, and then CB and Och have just been out of their minds. And if they keep playing like that, offensively, we're going to be really tough to deal with. So I think that we have the chance to really make a run in March, but it depends totally on how willing we are to play defense. I almost wonder if we should press a little bit more, which is not traditional of a Bill Self team.
Yeah.
But get those fast guards like Juan and Bobby Pettiford and all those guys and Remy and try to push the pace a little bit. I almost think that we could have some better success there.
So I know that, you know, oftentimes when people are in the stands and they're watching, they can sometimes be yelling at the screen like, why isn't this person playing, and why is this, you know? So I'm going to grant you something that I have absolutely no power, but I'm going to grant you the keys to this team for one game. So would you leave the starting lineup exactly the same? Would you start somebody different? What would you do if you were the head coach of this team for one game?
Man, well, that's a big responsibility. But I would probably leave it the same. I really like the 2 small guards of Remy and Juan. I think Juan gets a lot of hate from random guys on message boards for no reason. I think he does a fantastic job when he's in, as far as people get really obsessed with what, like, number of shots you take or what points you put up in the box score at the end of the game. And I think he does just a really good job of controlling pace, making good decisions, not turning the ball over. So I'd probably keep it the same. But I know Bill Self would never want to hear this, and I would never outright say it, but we could maybe take the gas pedal off defense a little bit and just run and just try to get out in space. Not at all take the defensive side of the ball off, but kind of like I mentioned earlier, just press and really kind of play to our strength that way.
Yeah. Coach Self would throw up in his mouth.
Don't show him this clip. I knew Bill would not like it.
That's the last thing he wants to try to do. But I spoke with you a little bit before, and you had mentioned that you are a Cowboys fan.
Yes.
And I'm a big Cowboys fan. So I got to ask, what do you think about the Cowboys team this year and the great 11 from heaven, Parsons, who's just bringing this defense together? What are your thoughts on this Cowboys team?
Well, I've been surprised a lot by the defense. Last year's defense was so bad, it was just miserable.
Terrible.
I mean, Dak could throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, and we'd still lose. I think Dan Quinn's got the defense rolling. And as much as I didn't love the struggle versus the Washington football team this past weekend, I did love that we won the game on defense. And we showed that we can win a game on defense, because we know that when Dak and CD and Amari and Gallup are clicking in the NFL, it's tough to get a better offensive set than that. So I think that I have high hopes for the first time as a Cowboys fan in a long time. I get a lot of the "you're a bandwagon fan," which is hilarious because the Cowboys have been 8-8 my whole life.
Yeah, same here. I feel
It's always like, oh, of course. And I'm like, dude, I was like 2 when we won the Super Bowl. We've been bad. And so I do think that if we can get to the playoffs, which with our division, there should be no reason we don't. I think that offense can always cause problems. And then Michael Parsons and the defense getting healthy now, I think we could make a serious run.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, or not for me, unfortunately for this conversation, I'm not a Cowboys fan. But the thing is that I'm not a fan of any NFL team.
Oh,
I'm a fantasy football player right here.
there
So
we go.
I could care less who wins. I could care less about anything as long as my guy scores a bunch of points. So
Which this is 2 years in a row now where he hasn't even made the playoffs. So he takes it. So he'll do 100, 200, I mean, probably more than that, mock drafts before the season just to draft a team that he can't even make the playoffs with. I mean, and I gave him Jonathan Taylor, and I gave him Amari Cooper for Aaron Jones and for Calvin Ridley, who never played a game for me, I don't think. and he still did not make the playoffs. So that shows you just how bad his team is.
I do research. So you said you're a fantasy guy as well?
Well, I'm both. I'm a fantasy guy that just picks Cowboys players. Because then it's best of both worlds. That if my fantasy team is rolling, the Cowboys are rolling, and if the Cowboys aren't rolling, I just won't set my lineup. And so that's easy for me.
I love it. But you also mentioned UFC, and we saw a pretty big card this last weekend. What were your thoughts on that? And Amanda Nunes losing, and then the main event that went both ways for most of it.
Yeah. Amanda Nunes losing was not a statement I ever imagined getting on a podcast and talking about. For the longest time, she was just unbelievable. The whole card was great. I actually think I have to be hand up on Charles Oliveira. I thought when he beat Chandler, I said, well, that's a fluke. He caught him in the right place. I don't think he's going to be able to compete. And then he took DP's best and came back and dominated round 2 and 3. And now I think I read a report today that DP doesn't want to fight at 155 anymore. He may not do I think he choked the soul out of him. He's done with 155.
He tapped.
So I think he's done. And so I'm curious to see the Olivier Gaethje as it comes up, because I don't think you can trade shots in the first round with Gaethje like you can with DP. But also people keep saying Olivier is going to quit, and he just keeps choking dudes out. So I think that's up to him. And then as far as Pena, the coolest thing about that fight to me is after the first round, right at the beginning, you kind of saw the fear in Pena's eyes. It's like once she got to the ring, it was like, uh-oh. And then after the first round, she said something to her coach. She was like, she's blocking everything I do. And her coach said, that's fine. We've got her right where we want her. And then after she landed a couple shots, you could almost see like the confidence build. It was like kind of like Rocky IV. Like Rocky was just like chopping down the Russian, like one shot at a time.
Well, what I'll say about that too is even, relating that to Kansas basketball, we were just talking earlier about how, a team like Missouri, they'll come into the game almost pretty much mentally defeated already, knowing that you're walking into Allen Fieldhouse and you have no chance. And what you have to do is step on their throats like Kansas did. And we've been talking about games before where they haven't quite done that yet. And they did that on this game. And the second that you give them a little bit of confidence and some hope, that all goes away. And I've been a part of a few games where, it feels like, we got them right where we want them. And then they go on a little bit of run, they cut it within 10 before halftime and they feel like, we can compete with them. And then it's a whole different team that comes out in the second half. And you almost saw that in that fight where, she realized, all right, well, I can kind of compete with her. And she came out in the second round, traded punches with her, and then, ultimately tapped her out. And it was fun to watch. I mean, I enjoy upsets, and I didn't think that was going to happen. I think, Dad, you texted me before, like, what's the chance of this? And I said 0.
Well,
Clearly I was wrong.
Well, the thing is, I had seen the presser before, and Pena was talking smack.
Yeah.
But what I thought about it when I was watching it was like, she's talking smack, but not in a theatrical, like I'm just trying to rah. It looked like she was serious, like, Nunes, you've never fought anybody quite like me before. It's what it kind of came across. And so that's why I'm texting Landen. I'm like, he's the authority when it comes to UFC. I'm like, yo, are you sure she doesn't have – because I just felt like something could happen there. And he's like, no, 0. I'm like, all right, well, there's no chance.
I was wrong. I was wrong on that.
Well, see, I had a friend over, and as soon as he came in, I just said, hey, I watched the weigh-in yesterday, and Pena didn't have any fear in her eyes.
None.
I said, this could happen. And I didn't actually believe it could happen. And then I saw Pena as nervous as she was when she was being introduced. And I said, body language is bad. Like, I think she's defeated. But it happened. We both just kind of looked at each other and were like, this was never supposed to happen. But it was really cool to see like her build that confidence as she landed more shots. And then back to Kansas, that's what we didn't do versus Dayton. And then you let small teams hang around like that, and they hit ridiculous shots at the end of the game like that. Though I think it was the Andrew Wiggins year, they actually played Eastern Kentucky University in the second round. And Atlanta, I think you were on that team, and Eastern Kentucky University is where I live. And so I remember being like, we're gonna smash them. And then they hung around for so long. It's like, if you don't, there's like that momentum switch in the game where it's like a 10 to 13 points, and it's a couple buckets either way that will either make it a 30-point game or make it back to a 3-point game.
Yeah. I mean, you almost forget that you're not supposed to be competing with this team. And then you're like, all right, we're on the same level. Let's run it, and that's usually the feeling that I would get, sometimes when we let some teams hang around a little too long. But transition into some fights this weekend, and Coach Self's former player, I don't know if you know this, Dad, but on the Jake Paul's fighting Tyron Woodley again this weekend. And on the undercard, you got Frank Gore versus Darren Williams. And I reached out to Coach Howard because he played with him at Illinois. And I asked, I said, what's up with this? Is he good? And he said he's really good. Like, if you have money to bet on him, bet on Darren Williams, because that's the guy. And apparently Frank Gore is has no chance.
Yeah, well, I think I listened to one interview of Frank Gore talking, and then they're asking him about boxing. He just was talking about how tough he was. And it's like, well, that's cool, but like, if you don't know how to box, it doesn't really matter how tough you are. But that's interesting that Darren Williams is going to do it. I'd be curious to see if I watched the first Jake Paul Tyron Woodley fight, and like the whole time you just wanted Woodley to step on the gas, just maximize opportunities and not just stand there. So I'll be curious now that he got the second time around if he'll be able to just do it. I started as a Jake Paul hater, but I have grown to at least respect what he's doing.
He can fight.
Yeah, he can fight. I don't think me and Jake Paul would be boys, but that's okay. But I am curious to see if Tyron will at least maybe put an end to the show, but I don't know.
I'm sorry, guys, but this is ridiculous. I mean, come on. You got a football player against a basketball player. You got a guy who's a YouTuber. Whatever happened to the sport's gone. The sport has been destroyed. I mean, what's next? Are we going to see, like, Urkel that's upset with somebody or something else? I mean, come on. Hey, this is ridiculous.
Let me ask you this. Are you watching it or talking? Did you watch the last one?
I did watch the last one. I'm not sure they get another $50 out of me.
I'm not spending any money on that.
but he has a free card, that ESPN Plus card this weekend. I'll probably watch that.
Derek Lewis, that'll be a fun one.
I'll probably watch that card more than I will, but I'll keep up with it. And I'd like to see the highlights. But.
Well, I'm interested to see how Williams does, because when I reached out to Coach, he was like, man, he can throw hands. So I'm curious about that. But Derek, before we let you go, and I appreciate you coming on and talking all kinds of stuff with us, we have a top 5 list. And I don't know if you're into Marvel movies at all, but you see my dad over there with the Marvel shirt on. We're pretty big Marvel fans, and this week Spider-Man's coming out. So we do a top 5 list, usually sports related, but we decided to go off and do a top 5 Marvel MCU movies. So if you are into them, or if you've seen any at all, what would you put as your number 1 MCU movie?
Now, I will have to admit, I have not seen near as many as most people.
Okay.
I kind of got behind the wave, and then it felt like they were coming out so often, I got buried. I didn't get to do it.
So have you seen any of them?
Yes, I've seen probably like 5 or 6. I would say my favorite one is always going to be the original Iron Man, just because I think that movie's awesome. I think Iron Man is the coolest. And so I'll probably go Iron Man, the original, is the best Marvel movie.
Love it. Well, thanks for coming on the show today, Derek, and this was great. We might have to have you on again in another segment sometime.
Absolutely, man. I'm welcome anytime. This is literally a dream come true, so I appreciate it. I watched a ton of Kansas basketball in my day, so to be able to chop it up with a former Kansas player and his dad it's an honor. So I appreciate it, fellas.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Take care, man.
You too. See ya.
Before we move on to the next topic, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up already with BetRivers, now's the time, because they are offering $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one play through to turn your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. With conference play right around the corner, be sure to get into action and go to BetRivers.com today. By downloading BetRivers on the iOS app, you must be 21 years or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Nice. Well, that was nice to talk with Derek a little bit about Kansas basketball, a little bit UFC, a little bit of Cowboys, even though you instantly tried to go off that subject, but it was nice.
Yeah, I mean, and I know why you liked him, because he liked all the same things you do. So
he reached out to me. He sent me a little voice. We're trying to find some people to come on the show. So people are sending in voice messages and videos and stuff. And he sent in one and then said, I'm happy to talk any UFC, and I'm a huge Cowboys fan. I said, all right, he's going on next.
Yeah, you're like, he's in, done. Yeah. So anyway, it's but no, he was great, very knowledgeable, and I think he would be great to have on again sometime.
Nice. Well, we have Tyshawn coming on a little later in the show, but before we get to that, I want to go ahead and do our sub in or sub out segment of the show. Right. And so today I ask you, are you subbing in or subbing out? I just yesterday, Steph Curry broke the 3-point record, and I want to know, is there ever going to be, I'm assuming that you, I guess I should leave this both ways. Is he the best, and will anybody ever be better than him at shooting basketball in this sport?
So that's two different questions. So I'm going to take question 2 first, which is, will there ever be anybody as good at shooting? And the thing is that I think it's impossible for you to be able to say that this man at this period in time is going to be better than any person ever in the history of the game in the future. So I'm gonna sub out on that one, because I don't think you can just put that moniker on him and just say, that's out, that's over with. There's no one else. Now, when you talk about, is he the greatest of all time to date? And I'm also gonna sub out, and here's why.
Wow.
The reason why is that, first of all, he's an unbelievable. Everything I'm going to say doesn't mean that Steph Curry is not unbelievable. He's a game changer when it comes to the game of basketball and how deep his threes are and how good he is. But when you said that to me, my first thought was automatically like, of course. But then I started really thinking, and I started thinking about, what makes a great shooter? It's not 100%. Can I make a ball from where I'm shooting it from? Or it's not just, do I shoot the most? Because this is all coming up because he broke the record. Well, he broke the record because he shoots a ton of them. And of course he makes a lot, but the volume of shots that he's making gets him to this number as quick, that quickly. But I started really thinking about, to me, I want to think about or talk about someone who's a clutch shooter. So when I started really thinking about clutch shooting, who has Steph Curry hit big shots, not wide open shots, but big shots. So I did a little research, and I dug a little bit, and I found there was a website that talked about the top clutch shooters, and it talked about essentially to categorize as clutch, it was the last 5 minutes and overtime of games, yeah. Right? And the game has to be within a certain amount of points to call it a clutch game. And so the person that I think is actually the best is probably the person who's number 1 on this list, and that is Steve Nash. The reason why I say Steve Nash is that Steve Nash and Steph Curry both shot almost about the same lifetime as far as percentage from the 3. So about 43%. They're almost identical. Yes, Steph Curry's shot has made more, but Steph Curry is playing at a different time when it's okay to shoot 15, 16, 17 times of those, as opposed to when Steve Nash was playing. But then the reason why I put Steve Nash ahead is because in that clutch category that I just mentioned, he made 39% of those shots during that time. And Steph Curry made 37%. And so when you look on that list that I found, number 1 was Steve Nash, number 7 was Steph Curry. So if you put all those factors together, I think the greatest three-point NBA shooter of all time to date was Steve Nash.
Wow. That's not what I was expecting. I figured if you went with somebody else, it might be Reggie or Ray Allen or something, but Steve Nash.
Yes. And Reggie and all those guys were amazing. Don't get me wrong. But I want my three-pointer to hit that shot when I need you to hit that shot. Big shots. And that's Steve Nash.
Wow. Well, I mean, I love it. I love the research you did and everything too. I mean, but you are officially subbing out on the statement that he is the greatest to have done it, and nobody will be better. Yes. I would have to disagree with you. I think that he is, one of the greatest shooters, if not the greatest. I think he's the greatest. And as far as, where we get to in the future, I agree with you that it's hard to, make a statement like that. However, he has perfected that shot so nicely that it's hard to think that anybody comes along and does much better. But it brings me to a question I have based off of this. Who do you think, based off what you've seen of the Kansas in the most recent time with me playing there and, what you remember of Kansas, who do you think's the best Kansas shooter that I may have played with?
Svi? Yeah.
You want to know who I think?
Who?
I think it might be Brennan. No, Brennan.
Oh, Brennan. Yeah, but yeah.
I've never seen anybody with. I mean, Svi shoot the lights out as far as big. He hit the big shot against Duke. He's all of that. He's a great player, better player, all that. As far as just pure shooter, there's very few people I've played with as pure of a shot as Brennan Green. Now, he never really got the time of day with Coach Self and got out there. And every time he would get out there, he would get pulled so quick sometimes that he didn't, as a shooter, that's like the worst thing. But Brennan Green, for me, would take home that because, I mean, in practice, he would just go
kill
lights out.
Yeah, what I remember about Brennan, though, was him making the layup after the game was basically over. And Coach Self just losing it against, I mean, it was just, I don't even remember who you guys were playing, but
there's a few people that have been in Coach Self's doghouse, like, really bad, and he was probably on the far end of that. But anyways, all right, well, let's go ahead and get to our next guest, Tyshawn, and bring him on to talk a little bit. Tyshawn, man, what's up? You can hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
How you doing? Perfect. What's good? Lando, what's up, baby?
Not much, man. How are you? You're in Lawrence right now?
Yeah, I'm in Lawrence.
So it's storming out there, I see.
Heck yeah, crazy winds, like 80-mile-an-hour winds. It was raining a little bit. It slowed down some, but it's just real dark out here, real dark and gloomy.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit. I mean, I followed you a little bit since leaving Kansas, but tell us a little bit about your journey and like where you're at now and stuff. I would love to hear, what you're doing.
Heck yeah. So I guess like long story short, after my 4 years at Kansas went really well. I got drafted. I played 2 years or a year and a half with the Brooklyn Nets. After that, I went to the G League. I played a season and a half with the Maine Red Claws. I had a pretty good stay in the G League. I never got the call back up, so I went overseas. I went over waters. I went to Russia, played in Israel, played in Turkey, played in Greece. Been to South America, played in Venezuela and Argentina.
All over the place. Damn.
Puerto Rico. I've been to Vietnam and Philippines and Singapore and everywhere in Southeast Asia. So I've been making my rounds these last like 7.5, 8 years. And then the pandemic comes. So fast forward to the pandemic. About February 2020, I was in Southeast Asia. And so we had a bunch of games getting canceled early, like end of January maybe. Maybe we had like 2 or 3 games get canceled like at the end of January. So going into February, we had like another 2. And I was like, bro, I'm just been here for like a month and a half, not playing, not getting paid, not really practicing. I'm ready to go home, bro. Like, what's going on? And my coach set us down and he was like, hey, bro, you're gonna go home because something's happening that we don't really know about, Corona. And so they sent us home. I get back to the States like maybe February 20th, maybe something like that. And then the whole world shuts down like a month later. And so going through that process of just having to sit for probably the longest time I've ever had to sit without playing basketball, like in my entire life, from the time I started until now. Like that's the longest I couldn't even get in the gym if I wanted to. And so it's, it just started, the wheels started to turn, other things started to pop in my head, other interests started to pop in my head and things like that. So I took that time to kind of just find myself and try to find myself. I mean, the transition is not easy, but I took that time to try to see what other things I like, who I am. I see you do the gambling and you play poker and you do your thing. So everybody has their thing that kind of, kind of is their escape. That's outside of basketball, because that's our escape for a lot of things. But then when it turns into a job and then that becomes stressful, we have to find something else. And I didn't have that because basketball was all I ever had, everything all I ever depended on. And so sitting down through that 4 or 5 months during the pandemic really kind of, opened my mind to just kind of, I don't need to play. I love the game. I feel like I gave a lot to the game. I feel like the game gave me everything. And so now I just look at my sons and see how interested they are with it. I look at all of the life lessons that I learned from basketball, all of the mistakes that I made going through my process, and still being great, blessed enough to make it to the NBA and have a great career overseas. And I still made so many mistakes. If I could do a couple of things different, my career probably goes different, or maybe the same, or maybe worse. You never know. But I just know that if I can be that person for a kid coming up in our situation, to kind of be the deciding factor, or just an ear on to make a decision that kind of deterred me or slowed me down or made my journey a little harder, I want to be that person. And so that's where I'm getting my enjoyment from, is just being around a gym, being around kids, and not just little kids, high school kids, college kids, kids that got a chance to take it to the next level. Those are the guys that I see pay the most attention, because I've been there. You probably get this a lot too, Lando. You've had a really good career, and so when you talk to these younger guys, they'll give you their ear. They'll listen to you and kind of try to soak it up a little bit. So I'm just trying to take advantage of the opportunity that I've been blessed to kind of just teach the game now. And so that's where I'm at with it. Long story short, that was a long story short. My bad.
No, that was great to hear. And I can tell you, sometimes people don't realize how much we put into our craft and the game of basketball, how many hours we spend in a gym just trying to get better. And so I played, overseas, and I know Landen has played overseas, and you told us about a lot of stops you were at overseas. But so I guess my question is, of the places you were at, you named off probably 12, 15 places, was there one that you had enjoyed the most? I love this place, and I love this team, and I love this coach. Was there one that stood out to you?
I never fell in love with a coach or a team. I never was. So I named all of those places because in my 7.5, 8 years of playing overseas, I have not once played a full season with one team. So I would start a season. Not once have I played a full season start to finish. So it's like I'm always in 2 countries in the year. So I'll go from Turkey to Israel, or from Russia to Turkey, or and so I've never got a chance to really fall in love with a team or an organization or a coach. I fell in love with some areas. I love Israel. I thought that was a beautiful place. I got to see some religious things. I went to Jerusalem. I got to see a real like some culture, and so that was really dope. Even Russia was like the culture, the architect, the small things that you don't think you're going to be interested in, or you don't really care about prior to being in these moments. It's like, dang, that's pretty dope. Went to a bunch of museums and seen some dope artists and things like that. So I started to just kind of, after my second year, I started to kind of want to do things and see things. My first 2 years over there was just, I got to get back to the league. I wasn't trying to make friends with nobody. I wasn't talking to nobody. I was just trying to play basketball and get back. I didn't want to be there. So I never even unpacked my bags for my first 2 years. I was just living out of I never unpacked. I was there for 4.5 months. I never once took my clothes out of my bag. Because I'm like, I'm not staying here, bro. I'm about to kill this and get back. I ain't it's not for me, And fast forward to 8 years later, it's like, okay, or even 2 years after that, it's like, okay, well, I'm here. Might as well go get some food. Might as well go see what my teammates is doing. Might as well go see something. Go look around. Go to the mall. Do something. So Israel was beautiful. I thought that was really dope. I really enjoyed Italy. It reminded me of a smaller New York. Kind of really busy, a lot going on, really good food. The nightlife was amazing. Yeah, so I think Israel and Italy were my favorite two places that I've ever gone. But organization-wise, I just haven't been lucky enough or fortunate enough to have played for an organization who treated me so good that I'm like, yeah, that was the one. I've always had to deal with something, whether it's my money or whether it's my car or whether it's
always something.
Them trading me randomly, just doing weird stuff like in the middle of a season or after a game. It's like, well, you didn't perform or you're out of shape or you came here hurt. Like, bro, you gave me 3 physicals. You gave me a physical for 5 hours. And now after we lose 2 games, I'm hurt and I'm not playing up to it's just like
it was wild. And you know what I always tell my pops is that we were so spoiled at Kansas too that it's going from that to, even compared to the league sometimes, like there were things about Kansas that were, even better than that in some aspects. And so, I can understand what you meant. But the one thing that I enjoyed most, and this is what I tell people, and I didn't really take advantage of it my first couple of years, but like there's a difference between going somewhere on a vacation and living there for, over a couple months, because you get that local feeling, like, okay, here's a cool spot to go eat, or here's the store that you go, and it's a different experience. So like, to any young kids who are going overseas, I wish I knew this earlier, but like take advantage of that. I'm sure it sounds like that's what you did. It's like, you're going to see places and be places that, outside of basketball, you probably would never get to experience, especially for a long period of time.
Yeah, never even thought about it.
So that's awesome. I got a question for you. What is with this training that you're doing? What's your end goal? Do you want to become a trainer? Do you want to become a coach? Like where are you looking to take this training that you're doing?
Yeah, well, I think for me personally, I think I've been fortunate enough to be well coached my whole life, from high school all the way to, my professional days of playing. I played with Larry Brown, Coach Larry Brown, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago when I was in Italy. He was my head coach. So I've been fortunate to just been around some really, really great coaches, right? So I think that I got what it takes to be a coach, as far as just like the knowledge of the game. But I think the training is more my thing. I think with the flexible schedule, with the commitment of the kids, I think it's a little more serious for me if a kid wants to work out with me, instead of me having to pick who I want on my team and make them come out and talk to their mom and have to deal with parents and deal with politics of the game. Excuse me. A trainer is more so, I'm sure some politics within the training business. Excuse me. But when a kid is seeking you out and wanting your help and looking for you, I think for me, that's where it is. So to answer your question, I want to be a trainer. I want to train, and I want to help as many kids be the best basketball players and people that they can be. I've had some great coaches, like I said, who've helped me along my way, and without them, my mind frame and how I think and see the world would just be completely different. I've had people in my life who've helped me stay on the path that I was on, which made me become a professional basketball player, which helped me and succeed in what I thought was, my thing. And so I want to train. I think I got the energy for it. I think I got the skill level for it. I think I've been well coached with it. And I've been getting great feedback. I've been getting great feedback from parents and kids who have worked with me so far. And because of the experience we have, Landen, you probably know this really well, that because of the experience we have, I can't say that we're better than some trainers already, but because of the experience we have, it's just a little different when you're actually in there talking to a kid about why he needs to do this move, or why this move that I'm telling you to do 20 times over and over works, or when you're going to actually use this move in the game. A lot of trainers I see don't do that. They just go through this move, do it 10 times, maybe show you a clip of your favorite player doing the move, and so you're like, oh, okay, it works. But they're not really giving it to you how I feel like a person who's actually been through it and had to use that move and know when it works and what times to use it and when not to use it can really sit down and explain it to you. And so I think that's really my advantage, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is just bring all of my experience from all of those countries, all of those coaches, all of my playing career, and just help as many people as I can get to that level or surpass that level by a lot.
Yeah.
So one thing, I hope that you teach them how to throw it into the post. That's important.
Yeah.
A post-entry pass. That's really difficult for some people.
No, that's huge. I remember my freshman year. So Coach Landen knows this. We run a high-low offense, and so our bigs have to play through an angle. Like, we're not even throwing the ball to them if they don't have an angle over the top. So I remember, like, one time my freshman year, Coach was like, "You have to throw the ball to the corner of the backboard." I was just like, all right. So I'm like throwing it from my hip. You guys see me?
Yeah, we got you.
I'm throwing it from my hip. I'm making a bad pass and not going to where he wanted. And he just made me throw it over, like probably 20 times. Like, no, that's not it. Throw it again. No, that's not it. Throw it again. Corner of the backboard. And I had to do it for like 5 minutes. Everybody just watching me. And I ain't gonna say I never made a bad post pass again after that, but I just knew, like, the attention to detail was so crazy about that. Especially playing in that 2-game set that we had, Lando, because, you know, playing with those angles and having to throw it over the top, you got this much space between the man's hands and hitting the backboard. So he made me throw that pass probably 1,000 times in 5 minutes, bro. I never not looked for it. Like, T-Rob got a lot of assists for me because I just threw that pass all the time.
Yeah. Well, I got a question for you. What, you were at the Missouri game, right?
Yeah, I just was there, yep.
Yeah, that was a crazy one. But how does that compare to, obviously, the last one you were at, which was the one you played in? I was there for the visit. And then what would be I'm guessing that maybe top 3 or maybe the top most memorable games for you. What would be your most memorable, and how would you compare it to what you saw last Saturday at Allen?
Well, the Missouri game that we played in was like epic. Like, that was like an epic game, just because of all the buildup. With it being the last like rivalry game in the field house, that was huge. On top of the fact we were playing for something, we were playing for a Big 12 championship that game. Like, the winner of that game won it outright. So it was like we were actually like it was more than just a border war for us, or more than just like a that's their last game. Like, we didn't care about that. We wanted to win the Big 12. Like, that would have been 4 in a row for us. So you know how that goes, Lando. Like, that's what we played for. It's a Big 12 champion. You say that every time we break down. That's what we're playing for. So that was the game for us. It was the last game. And so with that being said, that atmosphere was crazy. The atmosphere was legit crazy from start to finish. It was like 2 or 3 minutes in there where it kind of quieted down because they had went up so big. But as soon as we got it back to like 12 or 13 or like close to 10, they just started going up again. You just heard them like getting crazy. And last week when I was there just now, it was pretty, I mean, I don't think it compares to that game because, again, we were playing for something a lot more at the time. But it was pretty rowdy in there. It was pretty rowdy, packed house, really rowdy. The fans were, I mean, as good as they always are, Lando. You know how that go. They're as good as they always are. With the signs and the newspapers and the rock chalk chant and the booing the guys when they air ball and waving the feet at the other free throw line when the guys shooting. They was on point. Like, they was doing all of that. So it was legit to be back in there and to see that from behind the bench for, I mean, probably my first time in like 4 or 5 years since I've been back to a game. So that was legit to see that. And as far as my favorite games in the field house, man, or just period, I guess. So I remember – well, obviously the Missouri game is the best game I've probably ever played in my entire life. Like, how we won that game, the plays that we had to make down the stretch in order to finish that game was ridiculous.
And you had some big ones too in that overtime. I remember you.
Yeah, I think I scored every point in overtime. Yeah, I scored every point in overtime for us, except for maybe one. Then I made the free throws to actually win the game. I had the back door to. I had the free throws to win the game. I had the back door to send it to overtime. Then T-Rob came down and got the crazy block, which everybody loves because it really sealed just turned the whole energy around in there. That's when it got the loudest I've ever heard it in the field house, is when he got that block, because it was the end of the game, so everybody had the time to kind of like know what's going on, and get rowdy. It was like crazy. So that's probably the best game I've ever played in my entire life. I remember one game my freshman year, we played against Texas when they had Dexter Pittman and Doge Balbay and who else was on that team? Damian, what's his name? Damian James.
Yeah.
It was some dogs. They were like number probably 3 or 4 in the country the whole year. Older team. They had a bunch of seniors at the time. We were a young team, and they came to the field house. And I remember that game being extremely loud too. And we ended up winning the Big 12 that night too against them. And Sharon went crazy. Like Sharon went nuts that game. Cole had a big game. And we shut Texas, who was like a bigger, stronger, like probably on paper a better team at that time because we were all young. Me, the twins, T-Rod wasn't there. It was just me, the twins, Sharon, Cole, Brady, Tyrell. Our team on paper wasn't the best, right? None of these guys had played prior to this year. I was a freshman. The twins was a freshman. The Sharon and Cole show. And Sharon went crazy. And I just remember that's where the Ain't No Seats came from. It was either that game, I think pretty sure it was that game. And so that was just like a crazy game. And then I played against Johnny Flynn, who's somebody I looked up to as a kid. I played against Johnny Flynn my freshman year in the Sprint Center at the that preseason tournament. Like our second game of the year. So I'm a freshman. I'm kind of like green. I don't day and played really well against him. Like had a really good game, and that's when I knew. That's when I knew I could play. Like I knew I was supposed to be at Kansas. I knew I was ready for this level of basketball. That's when I knew when I played against him because I was right there. He went lottery that next year, like 13 or something like that.
Yeah.
So we just wanted, before we let you go, we just got to make sure. I assume you're still taking new clients, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Lando, come get some work, baby.
Okay, yeah, right.
I'm done with that, but I mean, we definitely got to get your information and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we if you send it to me, you know, we'll get our producer Matthew to get it up on the screen and stuff because if you're in Lawrence and you need some trade, is it just in Lawrence or where are you doing your training?
No.
Everywhere?
So it's in Lawrence. It's in Lawrence right now because I'm going through this transition, getting an apartment, getting a crib, and getting everything situated. So sooner enough, I'll be able to travel and get to Overland Park and Olathe, the Kansas City area. So that's the plan, to try to expand as far as I could go with this. Because I know in Lawrence, they get to see the basketball players a lot. But in Kansas City, Olathe, and Topeka, and out west Kansas, they don't really get to see us as much. So I think traveling out there a couple times a week wouldn't be bad. So yeah, I'm excited about being able to do that as well.
Yeah, we'll get that up on the screen and definitely, you know, if anybody's interested, you know, hit him up and get the.
Heck yeah, I'll send it to you.
For sure. Well, before we let you go, I do have one question for you because I put out some feelers to some fans and then our producers and stuff to see, hey, what do you want to hear from Tyshon about? And I don't know, you probably get this a lot, but the number one answer, and it's a story that I haven't fully got the full story of before. You already know where it's going. But I got to know because I know my dad probably doesn't know about it. But this incident with the football team, I got to hear. Because all I've heard is that we lost.
So that's good. I can speak about that. I thought we were going somewhere else.
No. I'm talking about the I don't know what the other thing was. But
yeah, I don't even want to know.
But I got to know with this fight that happened. I've heard so many different stories, but never the full story. I want to know what happened and did we win?
All right, so full story. All right.
Yes.
Long story short, full story. So, long story short, there was a couple of females involved, of course, because any man's beef is either money or women, right? It's one or two things, right? So, with that being said, there was a football guy and a basketball guy dating the same girl.
All right.
Yeah, and I want to say, from my understanding, the football guy wasn't handling that well. He wasn't taking that too well, you know. And some words got exchanged, you know, just some, you know, back and forth. Nothing too crazy. But this had been going on for a little while though. Now this is like a couple of days of some back and forth going on. One guy tell the girl something, she go back and tell the other guy. This guy tells the girl something, she go back and tell the other guy. And now it's just like a bunch of back and forth. So I'm not sure if you guys had training table when you came, Lando. I don't know if that was going at the time.
We were bougie and we had our own little spot that we went to at that
exactly.
point,
So we crawled so you guys could walk.
That's right.
But we had the training table, so all the athletes, like after their practices and stuff, they went to the little place that was directly across the parking lot. So we're all in there one day, and one of the twins had like a plate of food. He was walking back to the table and got like chest bump, and his food like flew out the air. And I was just like, oh, here it goes. I was just like, here it goes. The wrong he say, she say thing happened. And so one thing led to another, and everybody was kind of outside, and then like, face to face, and then you looking at this football team, college football team got 100 players.
So they were all there. The whole team was there.
No, it was at least 60 of them, right?
Yeah.
It was at least 60 of them there at the moment. Now, when we went outside, probably only 30 of them came outside. And then when the words got exchanged and it was about to get active, maybe 15 stepped up, right? So then it started to look more fair than not. Because then we started to kind of retreat a little bit. And then as words started to get exchanged, we started to realize some of these football dudes don't even really know what's going on. It's like just a couple dudes. Like, it's not like a whole team. But we are so much smaller. We all knew what was going on, and we're all there that day except for Sharon. He was the only person that had missed that day because he was a senior and had just a different class schedule than everybody. And we just kind of like walked out into the parking lot, and I can't even tell you who swung first, who hit first. All I remember is like kind of retreating and being in between some cars, like trying to get up off the stairs. I'm just getting out of jams. And all I remember is probably like 3 or 4 minutes of kind of tussling with a couple of cats and then just running to the training room because I heard sirens. You hear sirens like, oh shit, everybody stops, run to the training room. One of the trainers in the training room was like, Tyshawn, your hand's messed up. I don't feel this at all. But this hand right here, so if you can imagine this part of my hand, the knuckle part of my hand being in the palm of my hand, and my pointer finger facing down at the ground if I was going like this. Like this was here, this was facing down. I didn't feel it though. And I looked, and I was like, my hand's broke. Like I'm going to get into so much trouble for this.
Oh, right? I could only imagine what Coach Self was like after that.
Hey, Lando. So that's how the fight happened, right? This is where it gets worse. Like that happened, but nobody really knew what was going on. It was just a bunch of people just kind of scrambling. Nobody actually knew what happened. But this was this was a time when social media was kind of new to people, right?
Yeah, it was beginning.
So, me, I'm very active on social media at this time. I jump right on Twitter and Facebook. Like, yeah, we did this, that, and we did this.
Oh, no, that's the worst thing. I know he was mad.
Literally incriminating our whole team. Nobody knew anything. I was on there like, no, I ain't broke my finger because this. I broke my finger because I did that. Like, I was just going crazy on there.
Oh, man.
Coach Self calls me while I'm in the hospital. Like, how dumb are you? Like, nobody even knew you guys were fighting. I didn't even know this. Nobody knew until you go on there talking this. And then I had to go to the hospital to get my hand fixed, and they had to do surgery. So now I'm the one that gets injured in a fight that had nothing to do with me. Just to clear this up, it was not my girl or any of the girls I was dealing with, but it was my teammate, and I was riding for him. Like 12 or 14 other people were. It was only one person, but it was my team, So I got hurt. I started doing my little Twitter and Facebook thing. Coach Self banned me from Twitter. I didn't have Twitter for like 6 months. He took my phone, bro. Like he would not let me tweet anything. I just remember that night, like my name running across ESPN. Tyshawn Taylor breaks hand and fight with football team. Like,
oh my God.
The bottom of there, bro. So I'm getting
over and over again.
Bro, I'm getting all these text messages from my homies at the crib. Yo, what happened? We got to come out there. Like, what's good? What's going on? Like, so now I'm giving them the spill. Like, bro, like this wasn't even my smoke. Like, I just was there. I just was there doing what any of us would have did. Like, I just happened to be the one that got hurt and with the biggest mouth. So
yeah, you didn't have to take to Twitter and do all that.
Bro, I went straight to Twitter, bro. Like, my hand wrapped up. I'm tweeting with one hand. Like my question's done. And so I'm the one that got in the most trouble about that fight, and I'm the one that like kind of stands out in the fight. And it wasn't even my beef. I ain't even had nothing to do with it. I just was talking about it because I ain't want people talking about I got beat up. It was a pride thing. I was young. People talking about I got beat up. I'm like, no, I had to clear my name.
You wanted to be the first one to it. Tell your own story.
Yeah, I had to clear my name. But it's all love, bro. That shit was so stupid, bro. A lot of those guys that was on that team right now, Chris Harris was one of the guys who I really liked and ended up like chilling with after that and talked about it with him years after. A bunch of those guys are cool, bro. That was just some like pride, like territorial, dumb, young stuff, bro. That joke was crazy. But again, to clear this up, with all the fans asking, that was not my beef. And I did not get my ass whooped. I actually held it down. down. pretty
I'll
well.
tell you this. This is the time when I always feel fortunate that I was in college pre-Twitter and pre-social media and all that.
I wish I was.
Because we did a lot of stupid stuff too, but nobody knew about it.
Nobody even cared. Nobody was pulling out their phone. Nobody had a phone,
Nothing.
a camera, none of that.
Oh, you can't do anything now. Can't do anything.
No.
Well,
the bird coming out.
I appreciate you coming on and talking with us, sharing your stories, and with the training thing, we'll definitely get the stuff out, for the people.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to you as soon as we get off the phone.
For sure, and we'll have to link up sometime. I'll come out to Kansas and see you, and I appreciate you coming on and talking with us, though.
Hey, Lando, you gotta teach me how to play poker, bro. I don't know how, but I like to gamble.
Okay.
So
hey, I'll tell you what. Learn from me. Don't learn from this other guy on this call right now because he doesn't know what he's doing. But I got you. When I'm out there,
I will teach you how to not lose money.
That's all he cares about. He don't want to win. He don't want to win. We got you. All right, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah. All right,
have a good one.
That's awesome.
Well, that's awesome. I always wanted to know that story because I had heard Coach Self would always use it as examples and this and that, but I had never got the full story, and now I did. So that was nice.
Yeah, I can tell you one thing though. Knowing your personality, you would have been out there to support, but you would have been chilling, and you wouldn't have gotten in the middle of any of that stuff.
I would have got in.
I don't know. You would have been like, "Yo, I'm not messing." Listen, I remember there was something else that happened during your time, and something happened at one of the clubs or something. Well, see,
there's a difference because I was never at the club.
What happened? Or you're like,
I was at home. I was at home watching Netflix. I wasn't at the club. Now, see, it would be different if we were out there, and I was eating and I was experiencing. But no, I most of my time, at night was spent at home. I got out a few times, but more times than not, I was at home.
Pretty much.
But yeah, no. Let's get to this final segment. We're gonna do. If you've made it this far, congrats. Thank you for listening this long, and we'll go ahead and get into this top 5 Marvel MCU movies of all time. I'm going to see Spider-Man tomorrow. It should be all right. I'm not expecting the world from it, but I always enjoy going and seeing it, being with all the Marvel fans on the opening day. So we went ahead and got our tickets early. But I want to hear top 5 MCU movies. What are they?
So when you posed this question to me, it was tough because it's like, my top 5 toppings on pizza or my top 5 desserts or something, right? Because trust me, I love them all. I can watch them all again right now, and I think I'm going to after this is over with. But I had to choose, right, the top 5. So I came in at number 5 with Captain America: Civil War, the Civil War version. I love the fact that those. Yeah, I love the fact that those they kind of pair off and they went after each other, and the introduction of Spider-Man into that under Ruse. And then number 4, this tells you how good this list is. Number 4 is Iron Man, the original one. I mean, that thing it's just so great, and how it starts the whole thing off, and Robert Downey Jr. is amazing in it.
Fantastic.
Number 3 is Endgame. For me, and that might I don't know what your list is, but number 3, I love Endgame and how they all came together and all that. But to me, Endgame was truthfully just the end fight scene, so that's why I couldn't put it up any higher. Number 2, Wakanda Forever, Black Panther. From beginning to end, there is nothing at all wrong with that movie. I thought it was perfect in every way. But number 1 is my favorite movie essentially one of my favorite movies of all time. It has the best trailer of all time, and that is Infinity War, the Avengers Infinity War. It's just the build-up of Thanos finally really kind of coming into fruition, and those guys going after him together just made that just an unbelievable movie. I love it to death.
So apparently we can't do top 5 of Marvel stuff anymore because I literally have 1 through 4 the exact same as you.
Okay.
The only thing that I changed with mine, so I have 5 or I have 1 Infinity War.
Yeah.
It's just I mean, like you said, with introducing Thanos and stuff, I mean, in the light that he was, it was awesome. 2 is Black Panther. 3 is Endgame. 4 is Iron Man. I have no idea how we got it. I have the list right here, too.
Oh, my God, yes.
You could see.
I see.
And then 5, so your 5 was the
Civil War.
The Civil War. I put Avengers, the first one.
You
know, the first time that they're all together.
Yeah.
And whatnot. That was a fun one. But wow, yeah, we went 1 through 4.
You are my child.
Apparently. All right, well, I guess so. All right, well, that was another successful episode.
Yeah.
If you've made it this far, we appreciate you listening. Continue to let us know what you do like, what you don't like, any guests you want on, all that stuff. But we appreciate any listeners out there, and we'll be back again next week to talk a little bit more.